like to welcome all of you tonight to a very special occasion. It is not only billed as the Gala Night of the Century, but it is a special night to honor the lifetime dedication to African heritage and several people, three of whom are with us tonight: Angela Fisher and Carol Beckwith, with their lavish double-volume opus, African Twilight, and Alan Donovan, who will bring us once again his Festival of African Culture and Fashion that he has built up over the past 50 years since he has been in Africa.
Thanks, Naomi. So this will be a gala night of splendor like none other, produced by Alan Donovan. Alan has told me that he thinks African textiles are Africa's greatest gift to the world. So he was always afraid to cut into the materials. So he ended up with a lot of flowing garments and evening coats.
I congratulate renowned world photographers, Carol Beckwith and Angela Fisher, for this outstanding exhibition, which comprises images and short videos capturing the vast cultural diversity of our beloved continent, spanning the entire human cycle from birth to death. I'm delighted to join you as we officially open the African Twilight exhibition, which is a celebration of the beautiful artistry and boundless creativity of Africa's cultural heritage. I want to thank in a very special way Mr. Alan Donovan, not only for hosting us here this evening, but also, and probably more importantly, for his enormous contribution in preserving our continent's rich culture and heritage. I'd like to end my remarks by again thanking Alan Donovan, who I have come to know, to appreciate, to admire, to respect, and love as one of the icons that has kept our culture and our heritage alive. Ladies and gentlemen, with these few remarks, it's now my pleasure to declare this Africa Twilight exhibition officially open. Thank you very much.
Angela and I would like to welcome you all warmly to our Kenya launch of our new double-volume book, African Twilight. We'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Alan Donovan for his deep commitment to preserving and celebrating the traditional cultures of the continent. We'd like to start by sharing with you a short video film introducing you to our work in Africa over the past 40 years.
Carol Beckwith and Angela Fisher have been photographing the peoples and cultures of Africa for the past 25 years, captivated by the immense variety and rich traditions of this mysterious land. They have travelled to some of the most remote corners of the continent, building relationships of deep trust and friendship with peoples who have rarely encountered the Western world. This has given them access to rituals and ceremonies normally held in secret, and their series of books has recorded and preserved these ancient traditions, even as they vanish.
African Twilight is the result of 14 years of fieldwork all across the African continent. It features over 800 pages of all new unpublished photographs. And in addition to this, for the first time, in words and in images, we've included stories of behind the scenes, of the making of the book. People always ask us how we first met. This took place in Kenya in 1978, and I'd like Angela to tell that story.
Well, Carol was finishing her first book, Masai, and her father came all the way from America to give her a birthday present. Being very creative, he decided to give her a balloon flight so she could fly across Masai land and include the aerial shots in her book. A miraculous thing happened. The balloon pilot turned out to be my brother Simon. And Carol and Simon were both very attractive, young and dynamic. And at 1,000 feet high in the air, Simon looked very closely into Carol's eyes and said, "You know, there's something I'd really love to tell you."
And my heart was beating wildly.
And then continuing to look very closely in her eye, he said, "I'd love you to meet my sister."
My heart sank.
Simon had recognized the strong kindred spirit quality between us. We were both lone travelers, young 20-year-olds, and passionate about recording the African cultures. And we were lone travelers. So he thought if we could meet each other, maybe it could be safer. And at the end of the balloon ride, he wrote me a very poignant letter about Carol, which said, "Carol is quite fantastic. All I ask of you as your brother is where you meet Carol and how the meeting went."
Angela and I finally met in Nairobi 1 year later, and we were totally disappointed. We met at African Heritage Gallery in 1978 at the opening of Alan's exhibition, dressed as we are tonight and not looking like Amazonian bushwomen with khakis and boots. However, Simon was so persuasive that we decided to give it a chance. We met the next day, decided we were absolutely kindred spirits with a shared passion for the traditional cultures of Africa, and within a week we were photographing side by side at a warrior ceremony, a Maasai ceremony on the border of Tanzania. During that first week, we shared a dream. We envisioned that one day we would create a comprehensive visual record of the most powerful ceremonies that move African people through life from birth to death. We were aware that these ceremonies were disappearing. We felt an urgency to record them before it was too late. Today, over 40% of what we've recorded no longer exists except in the pages of our books.
This map of Africa indicates that we've been working in 44 countries out of Africa's 54, recording African ceremonies. And we've now completed our work with over 150 cultures in Africa. For African Twilight, we've had to really go further and deeper into Africa than ever before. It's really difficult now to find ceremonies really intact in Africa. And to do this, we travel by different means. In the top left-hand corner, you can see us traveling by dugout canoe across the Nile swampland in Sudan. And on the top right-hand corner, we're traveling across a very deep sandy desert in Djibouti with a four-wheel drive that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. The center photograph shows a journey that Carol and I did trying to reach the Soma in a remote corner of southwest Ethiopia. We took a mule train of 15 animals over 10,000-foot mountains for a stay of 5 weeks. What was extraordinary was when we arrived in the southwest corner, is a Soma woman with a large lip plate leapt out of her village and came and kissed both of our hands. And we were so touched by her. And then we realized we were the first Europeans that she'd ever seen.
On the lower right, we're traveling on camelback with the Wadabe nomads in Niger in search of the annual Garawal ceremony, which is a magnificent pageant of male beauty where women pick their husbands. Now we were traveling with Chief Macau, living on a calabash of milk a day, and every time we'd grow impatient, Macau would say, "Oh, it's just up over the next sand dune." And 4 weeks later, we were looking at Macau, at which point he wagged his finger at us and with nomad practical wisdom said, "She who cannot bear the smoke will never get to the fire." And in this way, we mastered the art of patience and perseverance.
On each of our travels, we keep detailed and illustrated diaries. We usually write these at night, and we record all the photographs that we've taken during the day, and also interesting events that have happened to us. And we think they make up an important part of our archive because they give a lot of details behind the scenes.
For the work we do, we have to be ready on a moment's notice to leave home in order to record ceremonies. While we were in Madagascar photographing funeral rites, we got a telephone call in the middle of the night from Tanzania, from Kira Godal, who is with us tonight, saying that in 48 hours, the Saleh Maasai were holding their once every 14-year passage into elderhood. This was starting in 48 hours, and it only occurs once every 14 years. Angela and I can never say no to a call like this. We left Madagascar in the middle of the night, flew to South Africa, to Kenya, and drove 17 hours to get to the ceremonial site, crossing the border in the dark of the night because we didn't have visas.
We never imagined we would be so truly rewarded. As we climbed over the hill, we had this magnificent sight of a snake line of over 900 Maasai warriors. They were all wearing red traditional shukas, and they had iron thigh bells attached to their thighs that jangled as they moved. You can see here that they're headed for what they call the Maasai Manyata, which is a ceremonial grounds. The huts have been built by their mothers, and they'll perform here 5 to 7 days of rituals.
A sea of red flags stretched as far as the eye could see into the horizon. For the Maasai, red symbolizes blood, life force, and the hot, fiery temperament of the Maasai warriors. The warriors gathered, waving their red flags in the center of the Manyata. The flags symbolized the unity of their generation. The elders expressed their fear that this ceremony might not happen again, and that it was very urgent that we make this record for them. At the peak of the ceremony, the warriors get so emotional and so excited that they fall into an altered state called emboshona. Their bodies go rigid. They foam at the mouth, and their mothers have to grab onto them and wrestle them down to the ground. The mothers said to us, "If you place the young girlfriend of a warrior on his lap, he'll calm down immediately."
The Saleh Maasai are more traditional in many ways than other Maasai, as they live in a very remote corner, and they're the only Maasai that really wear this beautiful white jewelry. The Eonoto ceremony is a very poignant moment for a warrior, because it's at this moment he's going to lose all of his white jewelry for life, which has symbolized his warrior beauty. And then at the end of the ceremony, his mother is going to shave off his long warrior locks in order for him to be able to pass into elderhood.
Recording courtship. Some of the most poignant and deeply touching moments of all of our fieldwork happened during the recording of courtship. On the upper right, you see me with a Wadabe nomad from Niger. The Wadabe are perhaps the most romantic group of people that we've encountered all across the continent. And here's an example. As we were leaving the Wadabe following one of our field trips, we walked through the hot Sahelian sand towards our dusty Land Rover. And Chief Macau was following behind us, and he was scooping up sand from our footsteps and placing it in a leather pouch that he wore in his chest. And he said, "If I wear your footsteps over my heart, I know that you'll return to me one day." And we've returned 14 times since then.
The Soma were the people that we went to visit in the very remote corner of southwest Ethiopia by mule train. At the end of 5 weeks of recording of courtship and other ceremonies, we decided that we would actually love to give the Soma a thank you. And we took Muradit, who is the man on my left-hand side, aside and said to Muradit, "Muradit, what would you think the elders would like as a thank you present?" Imagining that Muradit would go off, visit the elders, sit under a tree, and several hours later come back and say, "Oh, we'd love to have a small clinic or some kind of schooling, a really serious project." But we were wrong. Muradit didn't budge. Muradit stood firmly in front of us and said, "Oh, we would all love to see your breasts." Carol and I had to think very quickly, but we did decide that as all the Soma women that we've been working with for 5 weeks were naked from the waist upwards, and Carol and I being wearing camera jackets and long-sleeve shirts, it was really a fair enough request, and we would say yes. Carol's going to tell you exactly how the story went.
So we invited Muradit into the privacy of our hut, leaving all 300 villagers outside, pulsating with curiosity. And at the count of 3, Angela and I lifted our T-shirts for 5 long seconds. Muradit's eyes grew wide open with amazement. His mouth dropped open, and he raced outside to tell everyone what he had seen. He stood on a tree stump and delivered an 11-minute speech. And what he had said in translation was that one of us has large, round, voluptuous breasts, and clearly this is a married woman with many children and absolutely taboo. But the other one had small, nubile, pointy, upright breasts, and clearly this woman was available to everyone. At this point, our guide Zoga hurriedly packed up our mule train and spirited us up over the mountains to safety.
We still believe in reciprocity. For our chapter on courtship in northern Kenya, we visited a very beautiful area at the foot of Mount Poi, which is a sacred mountain and the largest monolith in Africa. It's also the homeland of the Ariel people, who we were thought was some of the most attractive and had most seductive courtship practices. We loved their practice of decorating their hairstyles with red roses that they found in the marketplace, and both young men and women did this. The young girls, when they were coming of age, had mud huts built for them by their mothers where they could entertain prospective suitors. And if a man was really keen on a young Ariel girl, he would actually take her a coiled necklace, which he'll place on the top of her bead necklaces, her red ochre bead necklaces. And if she agrees to wear it, it means that this couple is formally going steady.
The Ariel have a wonderful sense of a flair for style, and one often found warriors seated under the acacia trees, putting egret feathers and pom-poms and silk and plastic roses, and even toys and small trinkets that they'd find in the market, all into their coiffure to add to their allure to the young women.
A Turkana man says of a woman, it's the things she wears that make her beautiful. And he doesn't even consider a female adorned till her necklaces reach from her chest to her chin. A lot of you here this evening will know how extraordinary Turkana courtship dances are. The men are very good dancers, and one of their secrets is they sing songs to the girls they dance with. And some of the lines go like this. I come from very verdant pastures, and we all know they live in the desert. And then the next line is, and I have enormous herds of cattle and camels as well. And then the final line is, you never imagined my conquest during the great cattle raids I've just achieved. This warrior, this Turkana warrior, was considered the most handsome and seductive of all. He asked us for so many photographs, and by the time we had done our duty, he turned around and he said, you know, when I put my ostrich feather hat on, it makes me agile and fast like the ostrich.
In order to photograph the Kara people and other groups who live along the Omo in southwest Ethiopia, we traveled by boat with the hope of reaching villages that were less visited. The Kara are perhaps some of the finest body painters in all of East Africa. They make a mixture of white chalk and water, slather it on their bodies, and paint and draw lines into it. They can draw only as long as the paint is wet. They then put a second layer on of dots, which represent the spotted plumage of their favorite bird, which is the guinea fowl.
For our last section, we'd like to just give you a few insights into the spirit world. African Twilight deals considerably with the spirit world, and we had the fortune in West Africa to travel with a voodoo-initiated priest who could really take us further and deeper into the spirit world than we'd been before. In northern Burkina Faso, he introduced us into a group of masks that were responsible for the cultivation of the land. In this part of the world, people often believe that the spirits of life determine your life. So it's the ancestral spirits, the spirits of the animal kingdom, and the spirits of nature. And when man cultivates the land, he cuts the surface and destroys the natural balance. And he therefore must go and ask the masks to dance, to appease the spirits, so that the balance of the land can be obtained again.
In wearing the mask, not anyone can put it on. A young man from the age of 4 years old becomes members of a secret society that learn how to lose their humanness and take on the spirit of the mask when they put it on. When the spirit pierces through the mask is able to perform superhuman feats. We've made a short film in an attempt to bring the spirit world to life for you tonight.
It's a pleasure to share with you some of the great diversity and incredible cultures in Africa. We are spellbound by Africa, as you can see, but we've also really learnt a lot from these ancient cultures. Firstly, we feel it's important to mention community. Community that helps us with not only survival and protection, but envelops each individual so that that individual grows up with a sense of well-being and fulfillment. And also the importance of elders being part of this community so that they can share their pride and also their wisdom on a daily basis. Also important are the rites of passage, which help define our life as we go through. They define what is needed and what is required at each stage of life. And these transition rituals, we think, lead to a smoother and more calm and fulfilling lifestyle.
Each time we return from Africa, we realize how many of these values have been lost in the Western world. Due to the chaos and conflict in the world today, we feel that it is ever more important to listen to the messages that come from these ancient cultures.
The most important thing for us is that in Africa, we realize that we look so very different to one another. Some of us are naked, some of us are dressed, some of us are scarified, some of us are veiled, some of us are lip-plated, and some of us are painted. But we are all the same human beings with exactly the same human emotions and human needs. Understanding each other's cultures, celebrating our similarities and absorbing our differences, we feel is not only essential for the evolution of humankind, but paramount to the pursuit of world peace.
Each time we return from Africa, we take our book back to thank all those Africans who have helped us make it. We took our last book firstly to Chief Macau in the Sahara Desert. Chief Macau had seen perhaps 2 or 3 books in his entire lifetime. He opened the book, he studied it meticulously, page by page, and when he finished, he looked up at us and said in his language, "This is Magani Yagitata," which means medicine not to forget.
In farewelling everyone, we'd just like to say it's extraordinarily great to be back in Kenya. It's wonderful to be with you all amongst some very great friends and some other people who've also helped us make African Twilight possible. It's a very moving feeling being here tonight and also being back with Alan, who's been a real pillar in our lives. Alan has not only celebrated and promoted some of the most extraordinary art form and also artists on the continent, but in doing this, he's also looked after Angela and Carol, and he's also been behind us in the sense of let's bring those books to life, let's create a gala evening for them, an African heritage evening that makes them richer, more understandable, and a huge event for everyone. Tonight is Al's very best ever night, and we just think the most of him, and we would just like to say thank you, Al, from the bottom of our hearts. You have been a wonderful and unique person to work for. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
In 1929, archaeologists digging in an ancient royal tomb in what is now modern-day Iraq stumbled on the scene of what appeared to be a mass suicide. 46 ladies, attendants to a queen, lay beside a pile of ancient musical instruments. One of these was the magnificent golden lyre of Ur. It is considered to be the ancestor of all the 8-stringed harps that came down the Nile, which include the Neotiti of the Luo, the instrument played around the world by famed Kenyan musician Ayub Ogada, who co-founded the African Heritage Band in 1979. His protege, a young musician by the name of Pampion, has looked at these ancient instruments with an eye for designing and creating new musical instruments. One of these he plays on his first release, entitled Ayubu, dedicated to his mentor Ayub Ogada.
Ayubu, ayubu,
Ghana.
Was even before he started Kenya's gorgeous shimmering hand embroidery of these clothes. The clothes from Kenya had arrived for a nationwide tour of the USA, including appearances at the Black Expo.
The vibrant and mysterious world of the Cameroon.
Oyelami. Nike Muraina, Alan Donovan brought his first works of African art from this artist, Murenia Oyelami, in Oshogbo, Nigeria in 1967.
Tonight is a celebration of life for our brother, our icon, our promoter. As you see me, when Alan picked me up, I cannot speak a word of English. But today, I thank him for all his effort on Nigerian women, I will say the whole African women, who do artwork in the continent. I went to the King of Ife, which is the Oni, is the head of all the king in Nigeria. This is our Alan. He has been sick, and we don't know whether he will be okay. Then they said it's going to be okay. They just read the IFA. They said it's going to be okay, and they promised to honor him with a honorary chieftaincy of promoting the Africa in general. So this honorary is going to be read out by Chief Muraina Oyelami. Thank you.
Hereby award the chieftaincy title, the chieftaincy certificate to Alan Donovan. He is conferred with the traditional title of Babalaje of Ido-Osun. Thank you very much, and this is your certificate of chieftaincy.
Thank you so much, Nikki. I met Nikki when she was 17 years old in 1967. And we've been friends, close friends, ever since. I've had more than 7 group and solo shows for her at African Heritage. We've enjoyed every minute of her time when she comes to visit us. And we are so happy she has the largest gallery in Nigeria, Nikki Art Gallery. So now she has more money to travel to see me.
Radido and Saida react to the golden dance. In a war dance.
Embroider the widest varieties and techniques of palm fiber tapestry in Africa.
Je t'aime mi amore me ni beffie e nelle arabilila too much. Amore, vedi per fie e nelle arabi là, too much. Je t'aime, mi amore, vedi per fie e nelle arabi là, too much. Nama fie. Je t'aime mi amore, vedi per fie e nelle arabi là, too much. Ne t'en va pas chérie. Je t'aime mi amore, vedi per fie e nelle arabi là, too much.
back cloth wedding gown, studded with porcupine quills. Alan Donovan will present her with an African Heritage Lifetime Achievement Award. She will be presented with an African Heritage Lifetime Achievement Award.
Invite you to continue to support the Donovan African Heritage Foundation. Thank you. It's been a great evening.